Morning YouTube. Welcome to the garden. It does look like a garden, but we have a little do-it-yourself video here. In past videos, you've seen me using this measuring stick to lay out my garden. It's such a useful thing that I thought maybe I should make a more permanent version of it. And I thought I would show you how to go about doing it too, since I'm sure you will probably find it useful too. Anyways, we're going to start with a 1-inch. Let me just kind of show you. It's a 1-inch by 1 inch by 4 feet long. You're going to have to take my word for it that that's 4 feet. Wooden stick. I scrounged about an armload of these out of a dumpster at a construction site years ago, and I'm down to my last 2. Well, if you don't have one of these, you can probably get a friend. If you have a friend with a table saw, they could probably rip you a couple of these out of a 2x4. Probably get 6 of them out of a 2x4. And then you too can have a bunch of these as well. Other options is broomstick. Okay, it's round, so you're going to end up marking on the round surface, but you can dedicate a portion of each part of the circumference. Let me see if I can turn this around and point it at you. I can't. I'm less than 5 feet from the wall behind me. But a broomstick can be had for less than $5 at Ace Hardware or Home Depot. And the third thing, if you look around on the sides of the road near your house, you may find a pointy stick being used to hold up a campaign sign or something. Now this is only a 1/2 inch wide by close to 2 inches. 2 inches this way, 1/2 inch. But you can put one set of measurements along this part of the stick, another set along this side, flip it over, have another set of measurements and another set of measurements. So you'll have 4 layout markings, 2 on each side. So this is a potentially useful alternative if you don't have one of these, and I freely admit that having 1 inch by 1 inch by 4 foot long sticks is not something that everyone's going to have. Now if you look at this one, you'll notice it's in kind of rough shape. It's got saw marks on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sand this thing down. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some 80 grit and we're just going to sand it down. Well, you don't have to watch me sand the stick down. The trick is you start with 80 grit, move up to 100, move up to 120 to get a nice smooth surface. I'll see you back when I finish sanding the stick. Alright, next thing we got to do is give it a coat of paint. There's an old can of paint. We're going to make sure it's shook up really good. And see if we can get the lid off of it. Hasn't been open in years. Now, what do you know? I think the paint is still good. Yeah, that looks like good paint. It will work perfectly. 2 coats of that and I think we'll be good. Got a nice light green color here that's going to stand out. It'll be a little lighter than the dark green colors typical in the garden, and it'll certainly be different from the color of the dirt. So, you don't have to watch me paint this. See you back here when it's done. We are going to finish up our project in our Big Clive / Julian Lett inspired workbench studio here. We've got our stick painted on 4 sides, and we will dedicate each side to a different particular kind of plant or plant spacing, and we don't need this. But what we do need is a measuring tape and a Sharpie. Now, I would hope your your hand is steady enough that you can draw a straight line across the stick. Otherwise, you may want to get a square. Okay, this side is going to be for lettuce. No need to make it nice. If you have artistic skills, you and the little paint brushes, you can always, decorate it up and, paint a picture of a lettuce. I mean, be creative with it. It's yours. You're building something for yourself. Lettuce and the other leafy green salad things are planted on 12-inch spacing, and so 12-inch spacing is right here. I'm just going to put a dot for now, and then we're going to slide it over so you can see that the next one is at 24. And let me see if we're going to be able to get 36 inches in the frame. Just out the frame. You're going to have to take my word for it. I'm putting it up. If we can get the measuring tape to behave, we're going to put another mark at 36 inches. And then we're going to go down the line and we're going to extend that mark straight down. You couldn't see it what I did at 36, but there it is at 24. And here's our mark for 12. And now we have got 3. Let's see, 1, 2, there they are, 3. And I'm going to try to get the end of the stick into the frame because this stick is exactly 4 feet long. And that means the very end of the stick is also a planting position. So I'm just going to use the Sharpie to paint a stripe down the back end of the stick there. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 planting positions for our lettuce, and that is all we really need. We can turn the stick and go to the next item. So this is what I use to, it's a coffee can lid. This is what I used to space my onions previously. And the way this works is you start over here and you put this here and you plant an onion here, here, and here. Then you move it over and you line this up with the onion that you planted and you plant 2 more onions and you keep going. And you're basically planting 2 rows. The problem is, I don't care how good you are, you're never going to go straight. You're always going to be turning this thing, which means you're not going to get a perfectly straight row. Your second row is going to be off, and then as you go to put in your 3rd row, it's even worse until you get down to your 5th row, and it doesn't look anything like this at all. And so that is why we are going to do onions. On this next surface. And what we're going to do is we're going to see that we plant our onions, what is this, 5 inches apart? Seems to be about right. And so we're going to plant them 5, 10, 15. And see, that's the thing. We make the calculations now, 20, 25, 30. If we do the calculations now, we don't have to do them while we're trying to plant. 35, 40, and see, the end of the stick is 48, so there is one more here at, you can't see it, 45, there. There we go. And so again, we're going to go down the stick, marking all. Yeah, square would be useful on some of these. We'll just keep going down, marking all the 5-inch marks. Oh, and this one here, because the end of the stick, here's our last mark, and this is less than 5 inches, so we don't mark the end of the stick like we did with that, because the end of the stick in this case is not a planting position. We'll go back here, and I'm going to actually mark what the 12 and 5, because there are other plants we may want to plant on 12-inch and 5-inch spacing. One thing that we can do, though, when planting lettuce, right, we're going to plant them 12 inches apart, and the reason we plant them 12 inches apart is because each plant requires about 6 inches of room all around it, right? And so the 6 inches of room here, right, so that 6 plus 6 equals 12. But this 6 inches at the start of the row, if we tried to plant it 12 inches in from the edge of the planter box, right, we've got 6 inches of here dedicated to nothing. So our first planting position is actually 6 inches in. So what I'm going to do, and see, here's the thing, you can put any marks on this thing you want, and what I usually do is, for something like this, is I will mark, here's 6 inches, let's see, we'll put a little mark, there we go, and I'm just going to put an S right here. It's actually a 5. To indicate my starting position, or I could also put first, okay, because S looks like a 5. So, whatever floats your boat. The other thing is, referring back to the video that I did, you remember that I planted, and I showed this with the onions as well, when I was showing the layout of the onions, I generally plant like this, with offset rows with equilateral triangles, right? For maximum planting density. So that means that the row-to-row plant spacing, the plant-to-plant spacing is 12 inches, but 12 inches to this plant in the next row is actually offset at an angle, which means that the row-to-row distance is actually 10 inches. So, we're going to put a mark at, move this up into the, it occurs to me that this measuring tape might not be the best tool for the job. We're going to put a mark at 10 and 20, and just so that we know what it is, we're going to put a triangle here to indicate the equilateral triangle row spacing. And that means something to me, but if these numbers don't mean anything to you, then don't bother. Put whatever marks you want on the stick. That's the thing that is important. As long as the marks are meaningful to you, that's all you need to do. And you notice we marked the spacing of the first planting position here and here, but not any of the follow-on spacing. And that's because we've already marked it as being 12 inches, and so now we know that all the other ones are 12, 12, and 12. You don't need to know that it's 12, 24, 36, 48. 12, the next plant is 12 away, the next one is 12, the next one is 12. Same thing here. We did the calculations. We know that the first one is 5. The next one is 5 inches further on. The next one is 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches further on. You don't have to know that it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 20. You've made the calculations, right? So that's how we do it. I've got 2 more faces of this stick that haven't been dedicated to anything. I'll probably do this one for tomatoes. And by the way, the onions also work for garlic. Like I said, if you're artistic and you got the paints, go ahead and just paint a little picture of an onion and a garlic there so you know what you're planting for. So there you go. I hope you like this video. These little measuring sticks are very handy, and having one that is nicely painted, and probably it'll last a lot longer than the previous ones I've made. At least that's the hope. So, like the video, give it a good thumbs up if you like the video. Share it if you think it's an interesting concept, and subscribe to get more videos. Thanks for watching, and keep on gardening.